Hello, YouTube. To start off with, I was never the kind of person that did what everybody else did to fit in or whatever. You know, I didn't have to have the Jordache jeans because everybody else was wearing them, or the Nike sneakers because that's what everybody else was wearing. Yeah. So, yeah, we've all seen or heard of some videos that are viral, whether because somebody thought they had a good idea or what, but some of this stuff, I have to admit, I wouldn't feed my worst enemy. That being said, I came across the viral TikTok feta pasta video, and I asked Dan, and it sounded interesting. It has everything in it that we already enjoy eating, you know, feta cheese, tomatoes, pasta. And I even seen a video where somebody even put spinach in it. Whether that's really how the original went or what, I don't know. The recipe I came across was about as close as I could find of the other person's video. But again, only because I've made this comment a few videos ago, what can I do to make this maybe better or one-up it? Because again, I don't want to just do something that everybody else is doing. I want to maybe add a little more to it, whether it's by appearance or whatever. So let's see what we can do as far as that goes. And one other thing before we get into this. If you're now watching, or if you had watched the Copycat Costco chicken bake video, at the end of it, when Jan and I try it, we dipped it in Caesar dressing because that's what we had on hand for the recipe. So, but if you want to use ranch to dip it in, that's fine. But we had some pasta sauce left over from the fried raviolis that we had made. And I'll tell you what, dipping those chicken bakes in that pasta sauce, yeah, that's the direction I think I'd go the next time I make them, is just having some pasta sauce on the side to dip it in. So, let's get started. So to start off with, this is mostly the ingredients that it calls for in this recipe, or at least from what I've seen. 2 pints of cherry or grape tomatoes. I got grape tomatoes here, 2 pints of them. I'm going to be using 1 bag of spinach. And I found this bag of the bow tie pasta. We're going to be using some tomato, basil, feta, 8 ounces of that. And you got to get the block because everyone says the crumbs or the crumbled feta doesn't melt right. However, I will be putting crumbled feta on top of this at the end. I'm also going to be putting some fresh grated Parmesan on at the end. Because I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, you can never have too much cheese as far as we're concerned. So the more cheese, the better. I'm also going to toss with the tomatoes some minced garlic, and we're going to be using some olive oil in this. Sounds pretty simple and pretty easy, huh? But the first thing is, I'm not going to do what the recipe says and toss all this stuff on the baking sheet that I'm going to be baking it on. I'm going to pre-start my tomatoes with the oil and the garlic in a mixing bowl and have them mixed and coated. So to get started, I put my tomatoes, I've rinsed them, I put them in this mixing bowl here, and I'm just going to drizzle on, about, quarter cup of olive oil, because you're going to be needing the excess oil that's in here when you go to bake it, because you're supposed to coat the feta as well. So we're going to be putting that in there. I'm also going to add my garlic. And that's for about 2-3 cloves of garlic. You can add or leave out however much you want and don't want. I'm going to also toss in here with it about a good healthy pinch of dried parsley. Again, this I didn't see originally in the video or the recipe, and I'm also going to add a good healthy pinch of dried oregano. And because you need to season everything, I am going to go with a good healthy handful of my salt and pepper, and garlic powder and onion powder in there. And I'm just going to stir and get everybody coated and going good here. All right. It's looking pretty good. So one other thing the recipe didn't call for, but I'm going to add on at the end, is fresh basil. Personally, yeah, you can use dried basil if you want, but I'm gonna do a little chiffonade, sprinkle the ribbons across the pasta, and just for presentation, plus the taste basil gives, brings out a little bit of sweetness to everything. Now you could also add chili flakes to this if you want, but Dan and I have stomach issues, and so chili flakes is optional. If you want it, fine. Add it. Add as much as you want, whatever. But if you don't even want to add the chili flakes, that's fine too. That's fine. But getting back to the basil, I had a heck of a time finding good fresh basil when I went to the store for this. So I went to another store to look to see if I could find any. And I'm going to tell you what, and I'm sure we've all seen in the stores these prepackaged little things of fresh herbs. All I can say is if I'm the head of that company, I would be embarrassed to even put the word fresh on these things. The one store that I found that in the prepackaged fresh herbs, the basil looked wilted. It looked damp, like there was moisture building up inside there, which at times when I've bought something like that, I've usually thrown away at least almost half of it because most of it had like mold growing on it or some sort of fungus growing on it, probably penicillin, who knows. And I ended up as well in the produce department coming across this fresh basil plant, which, if I can keep it alive till gardening time, yippee for me, I'll plant it in the garden. I'm only really going to need for tonight's supper a couple, about 3 or 4 leaves to chiffonade and put on top, so not like I'm going to cut up the whole plant here. I just got to try to keep it alive before I can plant it. Anywho, so we got our tomatoes tossed here. I'm going to let them sit and marinate. Come on back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Dan's on his way home here. I got my oven set to 400 degrees and it's already warmed up and everything. But before we put everything together, we need to do a few little things here. First, taking my tomatoes here. I got a baking sheet that I lined with aluminum foil. And that's just to make cleanup a little easier. Now I'm going to try to scrape out as much of this garlic and the herbs and the oil as I can. Because remember, like I said earlier, a lot of this oil that's on here is gonna have to coat the feta cheese as well. So I've made a well in the middle here that my feta is gonna go into. And again, I'm using a tomato and basil feta cheese. So I'm gonna get this peeled open. And if you don't like feta cheese, but you're a goat cheese person, I don't see why you couldn't use the goat cheese in here as well. I'm going to add the milk from the feta in here also. And it says to coat both sides with the oil. So now with that done, I'm going to just pop this in the oven. And I put it on the top rack of the oven because after it cooks for about 25 minutes at 400, I'm then going to turn the broiler on for the last 5. That's what it says to do in the recipe here. So, stick around. While my feta and tomatoes are in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and get some freshly grated Parmesan going on. Parmesan, however you want to say it. But yeah, I'm gonna just grate some Parmesan here. Come on back. So welcome back. I'm just finishing grating up the Parmesan here. I keep mine in the freezer. It makes it last a little bit longer. Yeah, it makes it a little crumbly sitting in there, but you know what? A little bit of extra cheese that may be a little bit big or bulky or whatever. Yeah, not gonna hurt anything. But there you are, freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And preferably, I prefer using the fresh over the jar, but if the jar is all you have, by all means use it. I'm thinking my brain gets like this every so often. I may not just sprinkle this on top. I still may just sprinkle on some feta cheese crumbles, but this I might just toss in with the pasta, the spinach, and the tomatoes and the feta. Just toss it in all together and then put my extra feta and the basil on top. Come on back and check it out. All right, our pasta water is at a rolling boil. That's what you want to see before you add it in there. I'm going to put that whole bag in. And that wasn't a bad buying. I got that at our local Aldi. So that wasn't a bad buy to get that. Just going to stir them around here so nobody is sticking together. I'm going to let it come back up to a boil here. And we'll be back. Alright, so the pasta is done boiling. Just going to give it another little stir here. Make sure everybody's loose from the bottom. Alright, and I'm going to turn on the broiler here. Alright. So, with the pasta done, I am going to now deal with a temperamental oven. But I am going to start by taking out at least 1 cup of my pasta water and have that set aside to reserve to put on everything once it's all tossed together. While this is sitting here though, I am going to take my rinsed spinach and I am going to add it to the pasta. And this is just gonna let the spinach wilt and everything so that it sort of blends into the dish a little bit better. So I'm just going to continue this here. I've got the tomatoes and the feta cheese under the broiler. Come on back. Yay, Dan's home. Look at him. No, we've been doing some cooking, YouTube and I, and I've been doing most of the filming on my own today.
Yay.
So, now that Dan's home, I'm going to hand him the camera. So, our timer went off. The broiler is done. And if you have an oven that may not have a broiler, some of them don't. You know. But this is what the 5 extra minutes under the broiler did.
Now what is this?
This is feta pasta.
Feta pasta.
We got a nice char on the tomatoes here. We got a nice brown caramelizing on top of the feta cheese, which is a tomato basil feta cheese.
Oh, okay.
So we've got that to go with our garlic, oregano, parsley, olive oil, and tomatoes here. And what I'm going to do, and this is going to be fun, but I'm going to bring this over here to where our bowl is, and I'm going to see if I can, cross your fingers. You love it, don't you? This just gives him a heart attack when I do stuff. But we're going to put that all in here. I need my spoon. But, yeah. This is fairly easy. I mean, I'm sure that's why it's a viral video. And Dan can verify for me that I am not a follower. I don't just do something because everybody and their brother does it. I have to really be interested in something, and like I told them, you know, we talked about this after I came across this recipe, and because it has everything in it that we like, I didn't see why we wouldn't like this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna doctor this up a little bit though. And how I'm gonna do is, and this is not part of the recipe, but remember I said I am going to add some fresh grated Parmesan in there. Our drained pasta and spinach. And this just gets tossed around. You're doing this, you're...
Salad-esque like.
Well, salad-esque, but by stirring it around like this, you're breaking up the feta cheese that's in here. You know what? I don't think we're going to need to add more feta to this. It's like going all over and coating everything in here, so we may not need that.
Look at that steam rolling off of there.
Oh, and you should be over here where I am. The smell of the Parmesan's coming up here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the pasta water. And you don't have to reserve the water. But I remember watching a Food Network show one time. And someone, I can't remember who I was watching, said that by saving at least a cup of the water to set aside when you go to put your pasta and your sauce together, excuse me, that extra pasta water, the starch in that water from cooking with the pasta, will help your sauce stick more to your pasta. So that's basically all I'm doing. I mean, it's not for creaminess or anything. It's so that when you go to plate this up, everything is all in there and you don't have pasta and no sauce on anything.
No.
That's about all I need there. Like I said, I'm not even going to add more feta to that. That looks pretty good as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to set this aside. I've got to get our dishes. We need our dishes. All right. Oh. Ouch, that bowl's a little on the hot side. This would probably have gone good with a nice garlic bread.
Nice crusty bread.
Okay, we're going to set that over there for now. And what I'm going to do, because even though we're not putting any more feta on there, I'm just rolling up 4 basil leaves here, 4 fresh basil leaves, and I'm just going to cut. And all but the stems. Put that in the garbage. And we're going to take nothing like the smell of fresh basil. And that's that. Come on back. We're going to give this a try. Alright. I got my jammies on. This is now nice and comfy time. We're going to be trying our pasta here.
Very good. Lots of nice flavors going on in there. Yeah.
The tomato, the garlic, the oregano and parsley, and
I like that it's meatless. It's
and
nice
the
to have
olive
meatless meal
oil.
one time.
And even that feta cheese, because it was a flavored feta cheese, because it was tomato basil, you're even getting a little more flavor from that even.
Yeah.
And then the spinach and the basil, you know, turned out really good. So again, don't do something just because it's viral. Do it because it's got stuff in it that you're going to eat and that your family and you, or even yourself alone, are going to enjoy. So on that note, for Dan, the boys, and I, get out there, enjoy life, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.